First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Hey, hello everybody. Happy Thursday to you. Firstly, I just want to thank everyone who happened to tune in during our stream at this time yesterday, and a big shout out to meteorologist Lee Southwick tracking those flooding thunderstorms. We had significant flooding down in San Marcos. St. Augustine had a flash flood warning. So I just want to thank all of you who either tune in day in and day out, or just happen to tune in for the severe weather event we had yesterday with regards to the flooding. Your viewership always means the most to us, that you entrust us to give you the most accurate forecast and information that we can. So big thank you to you folks out there as well. We have another chance for some more rain and thunderstorms here tonight. Now, just a few isolated storms coming in from Bradford and Clay County. They just crossed through downtown and right over the St. Johns River, about to move into southern and southeastern Duval County and into northern St. John's. But the overall environment today is a little bit different depending on where you're at. Across northeast Florida, although yes, it's still very humid, not only at the surface, but aloft in the atmosphere. It's slightly less moisture in the atmosphere today compared to what we saw yesterday. In contrast to that, up across southeast Georgia, the environment's still, rather juicy. The overall, environment with regards to wind gusts, also a little bit more conducive to see some strong downbursts or microbursts. This is something, we'll describe it as at times. So those two things combined, the overall better environment for some stronger wind gusts and the higher moisture content across southeast Georgia. That's why we've got that level 1 out of 5 marginal risk for severe storms pretty much from the state line northward, excluding Nassau County. Most of Nassau is included in that, and far northern Duval County. So you can see those primary threats or risks there on the side of your screen. 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. A little bit better of a chance to see some of that here later on this evening, again, across more of our southeast Georgia counties. And then, of course, locally heavy rain, those frequent lightning strikes, that we'll often see in these thunderstorms. One good piece of news, the steering flow. So the winds anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 feet aloft, a little bit stronger today. It's not a lot, but they're anywhere from about 5 to 10 knots. So that will allow these storms to move through a bit quicker today compared to what we had yesterday. And that was really the big issue, for your Wednesday. Those storms were just sitting right over the same locations, and we're just kind of meandering around, feeding off of the available heat and moisture and energy, that they were able to kind of just suck up and use. Today, a little bit of a different story. These storms moving from the west to the east. So those storms stalling over, a location and just dumping buckets of rain at 15, 20, 30 minutes, at 3 to 4, even 5-inch rainfall rates. That's not going to be the case today. Yes, some of these storms can still produce heavy rain, but it will be a much quicker burst of rain when they do roll in. So if you look up to the north across, more of central and eastern Georgia, big cluster of thunderstorms. That is kind of what we are expecting to begin to increase here over the next couple of hours across southeast Georgia. So straight down the line from some of those storms making their way towards kind of the north sides of Savannah over towards Charleston, South Carolina. If you extend that southwestward, some of that is going to begin to build, moving its way into locations like Clinch and Ware counties, and then eventually continuing eastward closer to the 95 corridor here over the next couple of hours and then through the rest of this evening. But at least across the First Coast out there right now, those isolated thunderstorms, as I had mentioned, moving into the southern Duval, northern St. Johns County. Some good news. These have started to weaken just a hair. Still some lightning in them. So the Mandarin area moving into Deerwood, kind of just south of Bay Meadows, seeing a quick thunderstorm. Also over towards Jacksonville Beach, seeing a quick burst of some rain. And then also on the west side, these storms kind of split apart. You can see one of them continued east. The other one took a little bit more of a northerly route, almost right up the 295 Beltway. So west sides of Jax, kind of headed up towards the airport, seeing also a little bit of some rain. But generally speaking, the environment less conducive for widespread thunderstorm development in Jacksonville today. So we'll see some isolated storms yet, but the vast majority of the area that we're watching, Pretty much think I-10 northward, so northern Baker and Columbia counties, and then Nassau across all of our southeast Georgia counties. That's really where we're watching for that thunderstorm development here, pretty much between now and I would say 7:30 to 8 o'clock tonight. Temperature-wise, depending on where you're at, similarly, it's either very, very hot or you're getting a little bit of a cool down. For example, down there at Orange Park at NAS Jax, you happen to see one of the few isolated storms here today so far. So you're at a balmy 81 degrees, whereas Jacksonville's at 91. Waycross is at 95. You factor in the dew points, although still high, not nearly as high as what we saw yesterday, but still feels quite sultry and muggy out there. Real feel 102 in both Jax and at Mayport, 105 in St. Simon's Island, and 103 down there in Putnam County in Palatka. So if you haven't seen any rain yet, it is still a very hot, afternoon and early evening. So if you're just getting home from work, about to take the dog out for a walk, make it quick. Make him go to the bathroom quick, get him back in, take him for a walk closer to sunset or shortly thereafter when things finally start to cool down a little bit. But here's what our high-res futurecast model is really trying to show you for the rest of this evening. So isolated storms around Jacksonville and up and down 95, but you'll note up closer to Pierce and Ware counties, we'll have a little bit more of some thunderstorm development. Some models are a little bit more aggressive with how much coverage we see of storms. Others are not, but nonetheless, we're still going to watch for that isolated strong to severe thunderstorm across southeast Georgia tonight. Now, fast forwarding to tomorrow, right there's 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. Storms will generally begin to form out towards the I-75 corridor, some early afternoon convection, and then that will spread eastward throughout the day. But similarly, I'm expecting most of the activity to be closer to southeast Georgia. So there's really just going to be and you can almost kind of see it there from almost like Tallahassee up through Valdosta and then up into southeast Georgia the whole way over to Brunswick. That's kind of the axis we're going to be watching for some thunderstorms to try to develop on, or at least the majority of those. So more scattered thunderstorms across southeast Georgia tomorrow, a little bit more isolated storm coverage for those of us who live in northeast Florida and especially around the Jacksonville metro for your Friday night tomorrow. So before the storms arrive, not a whole lot of a change, really, right? Mid 70s when you first wake up, quickly warming into the low 80s, pretty much by about 8 to 9 a.m. The humidity stays, high. So although temperature is going to be in the low to mid 90s, real field temperature still anywhere from about 100 to 105 degrees. And then we'll watch for, those afternoon and evening thunderstorms. So we're still sticking with about 60% of us seeing some of those thunderstorms throughout the day tomorrow. This is just another way to look at kind of what I tried to describe with regards to the storm coverage tomorrow. Southeast Georgia and some locations between really Highway 301 and I-75. So think Jacksonville's west side all the way out to Lake City there along the I-10 corridor. You might have a slightly better chance to see some thunderstorms and rain chances tomorrow. And then again, from Nassau County and the state line northward through our Georgia counties, good chance to see some rain for your Friday. Now, as we head into the weekend, of course, everyone wants to know, what's the weekend looking like? Are any of my outdoor plans going to be, ruined? If I'm going to the beach, if I'm having a pool day, we got a soccer match or, a baseball game, are we looking all right? Well, of course, yes. You could always see a thunderstorm, nearly every single day during the summer somewhere in Florida. But again, the overall coverage of storms and the chances are going to decrease and be a little bit lesser for both your Saturday and your Sunday. And really, this is the reason why. By Saturday morning, notice those lighter green colors and even a little bit of some yellow sneaking in from the Gulf Coast throughout Saturday and even into Sunday. It's not a lot, but it's enough to lower the moisture content or the precipitable water content in the atmosphere to slightly lower our rain chances and coverage for Saturday. And that, I believe, will linger through most of Sunday as well. Now, you'll notice by late Sunday afternoon and perhaps then continuing into the evening, we might get a slight influx of some more moisture moving in from the north. So perhaps southeast Georgia has a better chance of seeing some thunderstorms there on Sunday evening. But generally speaking, we're expecting the weekend to be slightly less stormy than what we're going to see here today, and certainly from what we saw yesterday. So timing it out here, or just kind of giving you the overall weekend outlook, mid-90 temperatures, real feels back up to 105 for both your Saturday and your Sunday afternoons. And of course, we'll certainly watch for a few of those isolated thunderstorms, but not expecting widespread storm coverage, as Futurecast is going to show you here pretty clearly. So there's noon on Saturday, 3:30, 4 o'clock even. So middle of the afternoon, headed towards your dinner time Saturday night. Yeah, you seeing a few, rumbles of thunder, perhaps some quick showers here or there. Yes, certainly so, but the overall coverage not going to be as intense, and they'll be a little bit quicker. So yeah, you might see a quick shower. You might have to, head inside for 15 or 20 minutes as it's raining, but the sun will come right back out. You'll be able to head back out to the pool or, back out to your barbecue, whatever you might be doing out there. Just, be mindful if there are thunderstorms in the area, you hear that thunder or you happen to see lightning, please head indoors, take shelter until the storm clears. And I also just want to stress, I've known this for a long time, but also have noticed it here recently. Even when the storm passes, and it might, the sun may come back out right where you are, it may have stopped raining at that point. Lightning strikes can still extend 5 to 10 miles away from the actual center and core of the storm. So although the storm may have moved away, lightning strikes can still come back over the area that the storm just passed over. So just be mindful, wait a little bit longer until the storm completely clears out so that it's safe to get back outside and do whatever you might be doing out there this weekend. Other thing to keep in mind, and I definitely know this firsthand, the heat and humidity, it has been pretty relentless here recently. Of course, it's always hot and humid in Florida and Georgia. Yes, it's summer. We know that. But with the warmer sea surface temperatures that we have seen as of late, that just increases the overall humidity. So because of that, real field temperatures pretty much, today and tomorrow, continuing through early next week, anywhere from really about 103 to 104 in some locations, all the way up to 107, if not even 108, which would be, nudging right up toward that heat advisory criteria there, especially for the end of the weekend and into early next week. So if you're doing any sort of outdoor activity, try to stay hydrated as best you can. Find some time outside of the sun, get in some shade, cool yourself down as best you can. And why I mentioned, I know this firsthand, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here or anything, but Thursday mornings for my workout, I'll run. And I typically run about 3 miles on Thursdays. From the time I started to the time I ended, I lost 3.5 pounds just in water weight. When you start sweating out there and exerting yourself, it takes a toll on you, on your muscles, on your head and your mind and stuff. So try to stay hydrated as best you can if you're doing anything outdoors this weekend or even into next week. And now I want to transition a little bit away from our weekend forecast and into early next week. Currently, nothing expected in the tropics for at least the next 7 days as per the National Hurricane Center. So they don't have any areas highlighted. Primarily, especially in the Caribbean, we got this huge plume of Saharan dust, so that much drier air that's sweeping in over the entire Caribbean, the Dominican, Jamaica, Cuba, even down towards the Yucatan and Honduras, Belize. So that is keeping things tampered down across the Caribbean. You combine that then with a little bit of an increase in some wind shear that has generally stayed in place over the last 2 to 3 weeks across the Caribbean. That wind shear also going to inhibit any level of tropical development, at least across the Caribbean, through the end of the week, into the weekend, and even into early next week there as well. You'll notice it's now taking it out to Tuesday. So the dry air and Saharan dust and the wind shear limiting things, at least in the Caribbean. Now, in the Northern Gulf, we don't necessarily have nearly as much of that. And I do want to preface this by saying the Climate Prediction Center, they put out these week 2 and week 3 global tropics hazards, I believe once a week. So this came out on Monday or Tuesday, I believe. And it shows you there it's valid for between July 16th and July 22nd. So that would be the middle of next week through the following week. The Climate Prediction Center has highlighted an area. And again, this came out earlier in the week. We've kind of held off on, talking about it too much. I know Lou and I did, I believe it was Monday or perhaps Tuesday, but nonetheless, they've kind of just highlighted an area in the Northern Gulf that buds up, of course, right against Florida. Tropical cyclone formation probability around about 20% for that time frame. But the National Hurricane Center has not highlighted anything. So why did they, show this area? Well, typically during this time of the year, very similarly with how Tropical Storm Chantal developed, you'll get these weakening fronts that drop down into the coastal areas, whether that's the Atlantic coast or along the northern Gulf, and they can sometimes just act as a convergence zone for moisture to head towards, and sometimes you can get some, either a low pressure to form, or a weak tropical depression, or even a tropical storm like we saw with Chantal. So that's kind of what some of the longer range models were hinting at or showing the possibility of, and that's why the Climate Prediction Center, highlighted one of those areas. Now, sea surface temperature anomalies, or how much warmer the sea surface temperatures are compared to normal, certainly very high in the northern Gulf, especially off the coast of Mississippi and Alabama, so Mobile Bay all the way over to New Orleans and the bayou there in Louisiana. Some very warm waters, abnormally warm for this time of the year. I'm going to take this back just a hair. I should have put another pause point. Over the weekend and into early next week, we're going to have this cold front gradually drop down towards the southeast and the Gulf Coast here. And by Tuesday and Wednesday, it is expected to pretty much stall out and really just form into this trough. So this surface trough, again, is really just going to act as a focal point for winds to try to converge on and for low-level moisture to also try to converge on. Because of that, there could, at the very least, just be an increase in moisture at the surface in the northern Gulf by next Wednesday and next Thursday. So what would that mean for us locally here? Really just an increase in rainfall. Not all long-range models are showing this. I want to, also stress that as well. So some are hinting at, perhaps we get a pretty strong rainmaker come up out of the Gulf by next Wednesday and next Thursday. No models are showing any form of tropical development yet. So that is why the National Hurricane Center has not put anything out. But don't be surprised if, either by later tonight or even into tomorrow, they happen to put something out, and then we're going to have to be talking about it here over the next couple of days. But as of right now, it really just looks like an increase in moisture. We'll have more thunderstorm chances. It doesn't even look like we're really going to be that breezy through next Wednesday or Thursday. But you're going to see these, images circulating around online, those web warriors out there putting these graphics out about, the Climate Prediction Center has the Northern Gulf highlighted in a 20%. Well, yes, but they put that out the last 2 or 3 days ago. It's for that time frame between July 16th and 22nd. So it's a long-range outlook. It's showing, yes, is there the possibility? Of course there is, but we are not expecting anything major, if at all, to form. But again, this is really just showing you that surface trough right there lined up along, Florida's Gulf Coast and the Big Bend could just act, again, as a focal point for moisture to converge along, and we'll see perhaps some higher rain chances and rain totals as we get towards the the middle to the latter half of next week. Then, I believe this is the American GFS model showing the forecasted rainfall from Sunday to Wednesday, and certainly could see more rain into the back half of next week. Then, but this is showing more so central Florida and the Gulf Coast and this I-75 corridor could see some higher rainfall totals of 3 to 4 inches over about that 3 to 4 day time span or time frame. The European model, another one we'll often look at and you'll hear about, not showing nearly as much. So we just want to talk about, is there the possibility of it? Yes. Are we expecting anything from it at this time? No. National Hurricane Center doesn't even have the place highlighted. So before we get to the 7-day forecast, I guess maybe we'll take it away, keep you in suspense a little bit if you didn't look too closely. With the recent rain that we had yesterday, we had flooding in San Marco, and then of course, with the potential for at least some heavier rain and some more thunderstorms through a large portion of next week. Flooding is always a big concern. And then, as we get deeper into hurricane season here, August, September, even October, these tropical systems, whether the tropical storms or hurricanes, can dump a lot of rain, and flooding can be a major concern here. So Toby's got it queued up here for you. I believe meteorologist Lee Southwick put a great story together on some of the modeling that has been done around Jacksonville specifically with flooding, and how the city is prepared to deal with some of the flooding that could potentially occur from any tropical system down the line. So, Toby, you ready to go? Yep. All right, let's cue it up. And here's meteorologist Lee Southwick with that.
And we think this is a project that's going to really meaningfully address flooding across the city.
Jacksonville has thrust itself into the forefront of flood modeling. It is the first city in the country to create a compound flood model that will forecast the probability of flooding across the entirety of the river city.
The last storm doesn't tell you where the next storm's going to hit. And so this is going to be really the first time that we have a granular picture of where we can experience flooding in real time.
The compound flood model will look at things like topography and tributaries and spit out 10,000 possible flooding scenarios. The city will then use a software called Flood ID to input real-time data from an approaching storm like wind speed and direction, tidal height, and expected rainfall, and the model will produce a map of what areas of the city are most likely to experience flooding from a storm.
And that'll help them trigger evacuation orders at the right time, handle flow out of different parts of the city as evacuations are happening.
The model will help with preparation ahead of an approaching storm in more ways than just issuing neighborhood-specific evacuation orders.
And this real-time forecasting system will help our Public Works Department know exactly where we're likely to experience the most severe flooding and make sure that crews are out there clearing storm drains in those parts of the city. And it'll also tell us what time we need to call them back to make sure we're keeping all of our personnel safe.
The city has multiple partners helping develop this model. Work on it began in January, and it is about a year and a half away from completion. Jacksonville is on the cutting edge of this modeling, but it wants to be neighborly and set the stage for other flood-prone areas.
And it was really important to me that this model be something that can be replicated in other parts of Florida or other parts of the country. So it's all using open data, and that'll make it easier for the next community that wants to tackle compound flood modeling to replicate a model.
And that was Lee Southwood again with a great story on the flooding modeling and mapping that they're doing around here on the First Coast and in Jacksonville specifically. So we'll watch for that thread as we head into next week. But again, nothing too worrisome, at least for the time being. So some good news for you on that front. So here it is. Look at your 7-day forecast. This evening, we're still going to watch for some thunderstorm development. I just looked back at the radar here quick. Only a few isolated showers around Jacksonville right now and in Duval County. So most of us around the metro and areas further south of I-10, so down into St. Johns and Flagler counties, Putnam even, most of us generally going to stay dry. Through the rest of this evening, it's really going to be areas I-10 northward. So think northern Baker and Columbia counties, far northern Duval, Nassau, and all of our southeast Georgia counties. We'll have a better chance to see some more rain and thunderstorms for all of you. Some of which could produce those 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, frequent lightning, of course, some locally heavy rain. But the storm's going to be moving a little bit quicker today than what we had yesterday. So the overall flooding concern also going to be, lower this afternoon and this evening. So that's for the rest of tonight. Tomorrow, still some isolated to scattered thunderstorms. It is going to be a very hot, humid, sticky day out there, mid-90s, real feel temperatures anywhere from 100 to 105, if not even higher than that in some of our more coastal areas. If you're right along the river, Mayport's a great example of that. But then the weekend,